For decades, Iran's military planners operated under a single strategic conviction. If you bury something deep enough, no enemy can destroy it from the air. Mountains don't burn, rock doesn't shatter easily, and reinforced concrete, layered meter after meter beneath a natural fortress of stone, seemed to offer a kind of permanence that no surface installation ever could. But thousands of miles away, inside classified laboratories and military testing ranges across the United States, engineers were asking a different question entirely. Not whether these bunkers could survive, but exactly how much force it would take to make sure they could not. To understand why Iran built underground, you have to understand what Iran watched happen to its neighbors. In 1981, Israeli aircraft destroyed Iraq's Osirak nuclear reactor in a single surgical strike. It was a lesson written in fire. Above-ground nuclear facilities are permanently vulnerable. In 2007, Israel struck an alleged Syrian nuclear site with similar ease. The message from these operations was unmistakable. If you want to protect critical military and nuclear infrastructure, you cannot leave it on the surface. Iran began an ambitious program of underground construction that accelerated dramatically through the 1990s and 2000s. The crown jewel of this effort was the Fordow fuel enrichment plant, built inside a mountain near the holy city of Qom. Intelligence estimates suggest the facility sits between 80 and 90 meters beneath solid rock, with reinforced concrete adding additional layers of protection. It was not designed to be hidden forever. It was designed to survive after it was discovered. Beyond Fordow, Iran developed what its commanders proudly called missile cities, vast underground complexes housing ballistic missiles, launch infrastructure, and command and control systems. The Iranian Revolutionary Guard Corps publicly released footage of these tunnels, a deliberate message to adversaries. The message was simple and direct. Even if you know where we are, you cannot reach us. This was Iran's strategic bet, and for a time, it seemed like a reasonable one. The weapon designed to answer Iran's underground strategy has a name that leaves little room for ambiguity. The GBU-57 Massive Ordnance Penetrator, known simply as the MOP, is the largest non-nuclear bomb in the United States arsenal. It weighs approximately 30,000 pounds. To put that figure in perspective, it is roughly the weight of a fully loaded school bus, packed into a single guided munition designed to punch through the earth. The physics behind the MOP are almost violent in their elegance. The weapon is not designed to explode on contact with the surface. Instead, its hardened steel casing is engineered to drive through layer after layer of rock and reinforced concrete, using sheer kinetic energy and momentum to burrow downward before its massive warhead detonates deep inside the target structure. The explosion occurs where the damage is most catastrophic and least escapable. Development of the MOP accelerated significantly after intelligence assessments concluded that existing bunker-buster munitions in the American inventory were insufficient to reach Iran's deepest facilities. The older GBU-28, itself a formidable weapon, was judged potentially inadequate against hardened sites like Fordow. What was needed was something categorically larger, and the MOP was the answer. There is, however, a critical constraint built into this weapon. Only one aircraft currently in operational service is capable of carrying the GBU-57. That aircraft is the B-2 Spirit stealth bomber, and each B-2 can carry just 2 of these weapons per mission. The bomb and the aircraft represent the apex of American conventional strike capability, specifically optimized for this single, critical scenario. In any operational scenario involving the use of bunker-buster munitions against deeply buried targets, military planners face a set of challenges that go well beyond simply dropping a large bomb. Attacking a hardened underground facility effectively requires what strategists call sequential penetration. A single bomb, even one as powerful as the MOP, may not reach the deepest chambers of a well-constructed facility on the first impact. The standard doctrine involves dropping multiple munitions into the same penetration point, one after another, each weapon boring slightly deeper than the last, with the final bomb detonating at the maximum depth achievable. This technique dramatically increases the probability of destroying even deeply buried infrastructure. The B-2 Spirit, operating from bases such as Whiteman Air Force Base in Missouri or forward positions on Diego Garcia in the Indian Ocean, would rely on its low observable stealth characteristics to penetrate Iranian air defenses. GPS guidance and inertial navigation systems would direct each weapon to within meters of its intended impact point. Precision, in this context, is not optional. It is the entire operational concept. Complementing any strike package would be electronic warfare aircraft, suppressing radar and communication networks, and potentially naval assets in the Persian Gulf, contributing additional cruise missile strikes against air defense installations. Attacking a site like Fordo would not be a single aircraft dropping a single bomb. It would be a coordinated campaign designed to suppress defenses and deliver decisive force to the target simultaneously. The moment bunker buster bombs begin falling on Iranian nuclear infrastructure, the strategic landscape of the entire Middle East transforms within hours. Iranian air defense networks, a layered system incorporating Russian-supplied S-300 missiles and domestically produced systems, would activate immediately. Underground facilities would attempt emergency sealing of entrances and access tunnels. Ballistic missile units positioned across Iran would move to launch readiness. Proxy forces aligned with Tehran, spanning from Hezbollah in Lebanon to militia networks across Iraq and Syria, would receive activation orders. The Persian Gulf, one of the world's most critical maritime corridors, carrying roughly 20% of global oil supply, would face immediate threat. Iranian fast attack craft and anti-ship missile batteries could attempt to threaten or close the Strait of Hormuz. Every regional government, from Riyadh to Ankara to Tel Aviv, would face decisions requiring immediate strategic recalculation. What begins as a targeted military operation against hardened nuclear sites would within 48 hours become a regional crisis, touching energy markets, alliance commitments, and the calculations of every major power watching from a distance. The contest between Iran's underground fortresses and American penetrating munitions represents one of the oldest dynamics in military history. The perpetual competition between protection and destruction, between the shield and the spear. Geology matters enormously in this equation. The type of rock surrounding a facility significantly affects penetration depth. Granite, one of the hardest common rock formations, slows penetrating weapons more effectively than softer limestone or sedimentary layers. Iranian engineers have been selective about where they dig, choosing sites where the natural geology maximizes survivability. American weapons designers have responded by engineering harder casings, optimized nose geometries, and more powerful explosives. Concrete quality presents another critical variable. Military-grade reinforced concrete used in hardened facilities behaves very differently from standard construction material. The thickness, reinforcement density, and the presence of shock-absorbing design features all affect how deep a penetrating weapon can travel before detonation. The uncomfortable truth for both sides is that this technological race has no permanent winner. Every generation of deeper bunker provokes a new generation of more powerful penetrating weapon, and every improvement in munition design eventually drives further investment in protection. The GBU-57 represents the current American answer, but it was not designed to be the final answer. Strikes on Iranian nuclear infrastructure would send immediate shockwaves through global energy markets, diplomatic channels, and military alliances simultaneously. Oil prices, already sensitive to Middle Eastern instability, would spike sharply as traders priced in the possibility of Strait of Hormuz disruption. Asian economies heavily dependent on Gulf oil imports, particularly China, Japan, and South Korea, would face immediate economic pressure and would apply significant diplomatic weight in any international response. Russia and China, both maintaining substantial economic and strategic relationships with Tehran, would condemn strikes forcefully and potentially accelerate weapons transfers or diplomatic support to Iran. NATO allies would face difficult decisions about whether to endorse or distance themselves from American or Israeli military action. The question of nuclear fallout, both political and potentially literal, from damaged enrichment facilities, would dominate international discourse. The International Atomic Energy Agency and United Nations Security Council would become forums for a global argument that no diplomatic framework had managed to prevent. The precedent established by successfully striking hardened nuclear infrastructure would reshape how every aspiring nuclear power on Earth evaluates its own vulnerability. The technological competition between underground fortification and surface-delivered destruction will not end with the current generation of weapons and bunkers. It will intensify. Nations observing the development of the GBU-57 and the doctrines surrounding its use have drawn clear conclusions. Future underground facilities will be built deeper, with additional layers of hardening, more sophisticated blast door systems, and redundant access points designed to complicate sequential penetration attacks. Dispersal of critical assets across multiple sites reduces the impact of any single successful strike. On the weapons side, American military research continues to explore options beyond the current MOP configuration. Penetrating munitions using enhanced kinetic energy, thermobaric warheads optimized for tunnel networks, and even directed energy concepts represent potential future developments. The possibility of tactical nuclear options for the deepest and most hardened facilities, though politically catastrophic to employ, remains part of classified strategic discussions. The mountain has become a battlefield, and it is a battlefield that is only growing more contested. Modern warfare has always involved the search for advantage in unexpected places. Armies moved underground during the First World War, cities built shelters beneath their streets during the Second. And in the decades since, nations with reasons to fear air power have driven deeper and deeper into the earth, seeking protection in the one dimension that aircraft and missiles find most difficult to reach. Iran's underground fortresses represent a genuine strategic achievement. Years of engineering, enormous investment, and a coherent military logic. And the massive ordnance penetrator represents an equally genuine strategic response. Proof that the surface world has not accepted the Earth as permanent sanctuary. In this hidden war, fought in darkness beneath layers of rock and reinforced steel, the engineers are not supporting the soldiers. In many ways, they have become them. And the outcome of that contest may shape the future